On the Raiders report today, I'm reacting to the explosive ESPN article on how the Maxx Crosby trade to the Ravens completely imploded. If you missed this piece by Ryan McFayton, I'm breaking down my biggest takeaways from the story. Honestly, if you live for the silver and black, this is the single most important article every fan must read. So up next, you're getting my condensed, hard-hitting version. And we have to begin with how the Crosby deal was structured, and then how it spectacularly disintegrated, which is why ESPN published this expose. Let me say this immediately. I was thrilled when the news broke that Vegas would get 2 more first-round picks, but I must also be perfectly clear. I'm ecstatic that 98 is back with us. He is about to unleash that extra 1% of pure intensity, and I cannot wait for him to demonstrate to the world, especially to the Baltimore Ravens, just how badly they messed this up. If you feel the same way I do, spam 98 below. So today on the show, I've got the 10 most critical revelations I'm pulling from this report. And believe me, it is filled with so much new information. A lot of fresh details are in that piece. Let's start with the medicals. They were not the only reason this deal ultimately unraveled on both sides. I should also note, I'm about to hit you with a ton of quotes during the show, and I'll shift between my thoughts on them on ESPN and then give you my final take. But this is what ESPN reported first. After Crosby underwent physicals and MRIs on Tuesday, he received the staggering news that Baltimore had voided the trade agreement with Las Vegas due to medical issues. The vision of Crosby on a Super Bowl contender vanished, and he flew back to Las Vegas stunned by the turn of events. Sources connected to the Raiders and to Crosby are doubtful that his health was the exclusive motive for canceling the trade, considering the timing and that Baltimore fully understood the injury prior to the deal. And this is absolutely factual, because ESPN noted they were given access to his imaging and the doctor's findings. No one will ever reveal the actual truth, is what Maxx Crosby stated on his podcast when he broke down the whole situation. But on top of that, I talked to a source close to Max who told me we were manipulated. I am certain the medicals were not the primary reason this trade collapsed, or rather, why it never happened. And I know I'm likely not the only fan thinking, Mitch, we've heard this story before. We know all about the Maxx Crosby drama. But at the end of the day, if I uncover new details, if more facts emerge, I believe it's crucial for the Raider Nation to see them, to understand what Baltimore tried to inflict on the Las Vegas Raiders and what they did to Maxx Crosby. And listen, man, I am all in with Max. I am all in with Raider Nation. And I truly hope you all see the Ravens tried to deceive the silver and black. Let's move to the next major point in this article. It is confirmed and has been reported that Maxx Crosby did, in fact, want out of Las Vegas. I know some people refuse to accept this, but coming from someone who spoke with Crosby's camp, he was looking for an exit strategy from Las Vegas. And ESPN also touches on that very fact in this piece. Though he kept it private, Crosby communicated behind the scenes this offseason that his desire was to no longer be with the Raiders, and a separation appeared certain. Above all, he craved winning at the highest level amid the franchise's perpetual instability and dysfunction. My intel is that Max wanted a trade from the Raiders, but I was also led to believe he was prepared to play for the team. It was not a case of, there's a 0% chance I'm playing for the Raiders in 2026. That is not accurate. There were other destinations, the Chicago Bears being one I was told he preferred over staying with Las Vegas. And then considering how the Baltimore chaos unfolded, even Max and his own people were shocked when the Ravens submitted the offer that they did, as it materialized out of thin air. But ultimately, both the Raiders and Max, mostly Max, wanted to guarantee he landed in a great situation and that the Raiders were also getting fair draft capital, because he didn't want to leave the team in a bad spot. As he said, he will always be a Raider. He maintained that stance even after the trade to Baltimore. Let's look at another detail I found incredibly compelling in this ESPN report. It mentioned the Dallas Cowboys were also extremely close to finalizing a deal. What's fascinating is, I had heard Dallas was interested and discussed it. I heard another team, Chicago, was in the mix. But to see just how near Dallas was truly caught my attention. Baltimore edged out the Dallas Cowboys, who were also looking for a top-tier pass rusher. The first offer included Dallas's second first-round selection at number 20 and defensive tackle Osa Odigizua. The Cowboys countered with their higher first-round pick at number 12 and a third-round selection. Ultimately, the Cowboys offered number 12 in their second-round pick, but the final 2 proposals, sources said, excluded Osa Odigizua, who was dealt to the San Francisco 49ers for a third-round pick. So, I had indeed heard Osa Odigizua's name was in the mix. and 105.3 The Fan here in Dallas was reporting on those negotiations. But the most interesting part of this article is, and again, as a Raiders fan, the entire Baltimore Ravens affair felt incredibly suspect. The whole thing was shady from start to finish. And after you read this article, I have to be honest, my first thought was a flash of intrigue. The Ravens initiated the deal, yet the Cowboys were also in the mix. And the more you scrutinize this ESPN report, the more the whole situation seems corrupt. But fans should subscribe because much of this new information isn't new to you. You'll realize, wait a minute, Mitch exposed that a week ago. Mitch called this out 2 weeks back. We were the ones who broke the story that Maxx was staying with the Las Vegas Raiders. I also know the Crosby family tunes in, so to watch the show they do. Subscribe and enable notifications. None of the information you see today should be a surprise to Raiders Report viewers. Crosby confirmed on his podcast he had physicals and an MRI on March 10th, but he said he was blindsided, not meeting Ravens coach Jesse Mentor and GM Eric DeCosta until 5 p.m. Eastern. Maxx said upon arriving in Baltimore, he expected to meet DeCosta immediately, but was left waiting 5 hours. Here's what feels off. ESPN confirms the Ravens got second opinions on Crosby's knee beyond their own medical team. The Ravens consulted multiple outside doctors, including the Cowboys' own team doctor and knee expert, Dan Cooper. Dallas has relied on Cooper's judgment before, like drafting Jalen Smith in 2016's second round. That was despite major ligament and nerve damage. Or drafting Siobhan Revel Jr. despite a torn ACL. But Cooper wasn't the decisive voice on whether Baltimore should kill this trade. Read that last line carefully. Cooper wasn't the primary factor in Baltimore's decision to withdraw. I know teams consult outside doctors, but seeing this reporting made something click for me. When you understand the full story involving Maxx and the Ravens, a picture emerges. By the time Cooper even examined Crosby's knee, the Ravens had already decided they wanted out of the deal. The suspicious part is both teams wanted an exit. Reports said the Cowboys were out, then the Ravens. Yet these were the top two teams pursuing Maxx, and no new medical data had surfaced on his knee. I believe the Ravens and Cowboys colluded, asking, how can we both escape this situation cleanly? The Ravens needed an escape, and the Cowboys were still making trade inquiries a week after this all imploded. It seems Baltimore had a singular goal, torpedo the Maxx Crosby trade, and they needed an accomplice. They likely figured if another interested team also backed out, citing the same concerns, their story would seem credible. It would give their fabricated narrative the appearance of legitimacy. Let's continue with ESPN's report on what the Ravens knew about Maxx's knee. Sources with direct knowledge insist the Raiders and Crosby's camp were fully transparent about the injury. The trade process involved Baltimore doing extensive research on his recovery and timeline. The Ravens possessed all the necessary information and still chose to approve the trade. Their legal due diligence should have negated any lingering concerns. ESPN is confirming what we've said all along. They approved the trade, gave up 2 first-round picks, and only then started plotting their escape. I've hosted this show for years, but at 33 years old, I'm still just a regular person, and I know that liars lie. The Ravens, particularly under Eric DeCosta, have a history of this. That GM has pulled similar moves before with Ryan Grant and Michael Crabtree. This is a pattern. So this ESPN report confirms my suspicions. Everything points to Baltimore lying, not just to the public, but to Maxx himself. The report states Crosby's agents told him they believed Baltimore would cancel the deal after the meeting. But despite his agents' warnings that the deal was in jeopardy, Crosby received conflicting information. Crosby says a Ravens staff member called him right after his agent, promising the deal would be finalized. Then, 5 minutes later, that same staffer called back to say the trade was officially off. So the Ravens tell Maxx it's a go, then they back out. Then, 13 hours later, Trey Hendrickson joins the Raiders. The whole situation stinks. And when you examine the Ravens' offseason moves, you see the motive. I genuinely believe they swung for the fences and missed, hit the panic button, and needed a way to fix it. We'll discuss Tyler Linderbaum later, but I'm certain the Ravens had a moment of pure panic. They looked at their offseason moves and realized they had actually become a weaker team through free agency. Imagine giving up 2 first-rounders to land a force like Maxx Crosby. But what if there was a move to keep those picks and get a better value player in Trey Hendrickson? The more I investigate this whole mess, the more I'm convinced that's precisely what happened. It's unbelievable. I'm incredibly grateful Ryan McFayton pursued this, because this is a bombshell that needed more attention. But since it was during legal tampering, it was conveniently ignored by many. At the end of the day, if the Ravens betray a star like Maxx Crosby, no one in the NFL is safe. Coming up, I have 5 more explosive reactions to that ESPN article. And listen, I know it's the offseason for fans, but I seriously hope you all investigate these reports because the information inside is crucial. Before those 5 takes, we have the new horchata fuel protein from Panda Subs. And you might have noticed, there's a new code too. Be sure to use code MAXX for 25% off at pandasubs.com. The 3 new flavors I just got are caramel ice cream with Biscoff cookies and their s'mores. That s'mores flavor is my #1 pick. I also have the chocolate brownie, which is phenomenal. And at night, when those sweet cravings hit, I've been too lazy to break out my Ninja Creamy. So what I do is just mix it with some hot milk, or even just a little bit of water. You put in a scoop of the premium s'mores or brownie protein, and you get an absolutely elite hot chocolate. I made some for my wife yesterday and just asked her, hey, what do you think of this? She was shocked, saying, there is no way this is actually healthy for you. I'll be honest, I'd rather have this than a normal hot chocolate. 30 grams of protein, 140 calories. It's almost unbelievable. If you've got a sweet tooth or want new protein for your summer physique, go to pandasubs.com and use code MAXX for 25% off. Let's continue reacting to McFayton's ESPN report. I have to wonder, were the Ravens just being petty? Let me break it down. Look at this from ESPN. On March 10th, while Crosby was at their facility, ignored by their top people, DaCosta admitted they also spoke with Trey Hendrickson. DaCosta also noted their interest in Hendrickson grew after center Tyler Linderbaum signed a record 3-year, $81 million Raiders deal on March 9th. Linderbaum had played 4 seasons in Baltimore, so there's history there. I truly wonder if they thought getting Linderbaum back was a done deal, that their offer was just too good to refuse. They must have thought, he'll be the highest paid center, he'll love it, he's coming back. But when he chose the Raiders, I bet they felt played, sparking a panic. We have to get a center now. We need more draft picks. Our roster is a mess. How do we get out of this Maxx Crosby deal? Baltimore saw their free agency plans collapsing. Their solution? To detonate the Crosby trade. Now for the next part, the Raiders were furious. And I am absolutely certain about this part. The front office and the team's highest leaders were legitimately enraged. The deal fell apart. But here is what ESPN claims. ESPN said the mood was surprise, not anger. Spytek supposedly told the front office, the Ravens backed out. Then he explained their reasoning. The report suggests the news didn't bother Davis or the organization. Las Vegas's leaders met that Tuesday night after the news broke to weigh the impact on their offseason plans. They had to see if they could afford their free agent deals with Crosby's $35.8 million cap hit back on the books. So ESPN says the Raiders were not mad. Well, based on my sources, I'll tell you this. I was told John Spytek was enraged. Mark Davis was furious that Baltimore burned both the Raiders and Maxx Crosby. I also heard that as long as Spytek is the Raiders GM, he will never work with Baltimore again unless contractually forced to. A Spytek Ravens deal, I promise you, is dead on arrival. Even as we approach the NFL trade deadline, Baltimore would have to offer something astronomical for these two teams to work together, especially with Eric DaCosta there. So yeah, my information conflicts with theirs. What I do admire is the Raiders acted like a class organization. A great team doesn't back out, even in the legal tampering period. But my first thought was, oh no, are we going to have the cash to keep the players we just signed? Like Malcolm Quantz and Kwity Paye? ESPN clarified the Raiders might have reconsidered both signings if they knew the Crosby trade would be reversed. But now, their edge group is loaded. And a part of me really wonders, if you knew you were keeping Max, does adding Malcolm Quantz make sense? Does it make sense to also bring in Kwity Paye? My assumption would be that Quantz was the higher priority, and that the Kwity Paye deal might have been the one they let go, because when you analyze his style of play, he's the closest stand-in for Crosby, a monster at stopping the run, just like Max. It seems he was their free agency answer to Crosby, a man of integrity from Michigan, a very intriguing move. Once again, the stories don't line up. My intel says the Raiders were furious, so you have to wonder who Ryan's hearing from. I'm not calling Ryan out. Perhaps his contacts felt John did everything possible in that situation, but ESPN reported that nobody was saying screw them. Getting an all-pro back is hardly a terrible result, is it? So perhaps Ryan's intel comes after the fact, because I heard the Raiders are done dealing with Baltimore, but maybe initially, right. For the first 24 hours, the mandate was simple. Control this crisis and take the lead immediately. And based on all reports and my own knowledge, that's precisely what Spike and the front office did. But I'll tell you, the initial reactions I heard came from sources who are extremely close with the Crosby family. I'll just say this. They confirmed the Raiders were absolutely livid about how Baltimore treated Maxx and his family. So maybe it was Mark defending the Crosbys, while Spike was all business, simply saying it's time to move forward. We have to focus on business. That's my take on it. We have one last topic to cover in just a moment. But if anyone out there wants that forget the Ravens shirt, well, for me, this situation is personal. When you double-cross Maxx, you double-cross the Raiders, and you double-cross me. That's just how I feel. And if you see it differently, believe me, there are no hard feelings. A Crosby family member even hit me up saying, I need some of those. So if you want to wear the exact same shirt that members of the Crosby family will be rocking, I can get you connected. Just visit chatsports.com/RR shop to purchase any of the gear you see right here on screen. And if you agree with me that the Raiders are truly back with Kubiak, you can also grab our awesome Raiders Kubiak hoodies and t-shirts. All our Raiders Report merchandise is linked below in the comments and in the description for today's show. Okay, let's wrap this segment up, as I'm preparing to go live on the Raiders Report very soon at 3 p.m. if you're not aware, Eastern Time. Wait, no, not 3 p.m. That's live. It's 400 p.m. Eastern Time, 100 p.m. Pacific. Correct. That's our live slot every single Tuesday. And for my final point, Maxx Crosby is staying put. The source who confirmed Maxx is staying made it abundantly clear he doesn't just want to be here for 2026. He wants to be a Raider for life. ESPN's reporting backs that up. Teams are still inquiring about him, but the Raiders' trade demands for Crosby remain sky high. And after everything that went down, teams are hesitant to meet that price, a league source stated. Multiple sources inside the Raiders organization say they would be stunned if Crosby were moved in the near future. A trade window might emerge closer to the draft, but the team is keeping its options open on retaining him. I have to say, my source made it sound like Maxx never wants to leave. That destiny spoke, and he's listening. He now knows the grass isn't always greener. But I also believe Maxx realized not all franchises will treat you with the respect you deserve. There was that friction with Alex Guerrero last season. We covered that topic extensively right here on this program. For a full breakdown, watch the videos I posted back in February. But that was just one of those little things that escalated. I think Maxx also learned a team can offer up 2 first-round picks for you, but it's no guarantee they'll actually treat you with the respect you have earned. And I believe Maxx truly sees that the Raiders give him and his family incredible love daily, which, frankly, Baltimore did not. So I'll close today's show with Maxx's own words from his podcast. I'm here. I was meant to be a Raider. I am all in for life, unless something unforeseen happens. But in this league, you never know. And that is the reality. I am confident that if you asked Maxx, or anyone close to him, if he will retire a Raider, his answer would be yes. Maxx is fired up for this season. He believes in this team more than any other Raiders team he's been on. And to be clear, Maxx didn't say that to me. It's just my assessment from my sources. But I know for a fact Maxx does not want to leave Las Vegas. And I truly believe they will hammer out a new contract that keeps Maxx Crosby in a Raiders jersey for his entire career.